Shannon, welcome to the HR Morning Show. Pleasure to meet you.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
Well, welcome. I'm going to switch from my snarky self because you don't know me well enough, and I don't know you to kind of bring that energy here. So, Shannon, well, I'm going to go back to standard good hosting etiquette mode here, being polite. See, Joel and I have a thing, right? We've known each other for a long time, and that's just the rapport that we have. So, Shannon, welcome to the show. If you could kindly introduce yourself, tell everyone who you are and what you do best.
Yeah, great. Thank you. So I am a spiritual director and contemplative coach, and I work for my company is called Ransacked Soul,
Ooh,
and yeah. And I work with individuals and groups and leadership teams, and I teach people spiritual practices or mindfulness. I'm a yoga instructor. I'm kind of out in the world doing lots of things. So.
I I love that energy when people don't know a lot about the pods offline. I mean, I dip my toes in that water in my personal life. It's something I deeply believe in. I am a huge believer in energy and not going full tilt on the hippy dippy spectrum, but I truly believe that energy is important. We feed off each other, and energy connects, and energy can also repel. You talk a lot about connection. If you could share, and I had an opportunity to read it, share like a little. We'll link it up, everyone. Link up Shannon's blog that we're going to talk about in a bit here. But if you could just summarize what the blog is all about,
Yeah, are you talking about the one about gratitude specifically?
establishing
The
connection.
oh, the
Yeah.
connections one. Yeah. Um, well, I think we absolutely live in a really disconnected world. The even our Surgeon General says that one of the biggest problems that Americans face is loneliness.
Mm,
Um, and it's not for lack of ways to connect, right? Obviously, even here in the technology world, we have way more ways to connect than we've ever
of course.
had ever in the world. And yet we're lonelier than we've ever been, and I think what we've really lost is authentic connection. We're going so fast through our daily lives and we're just trying to get task after task done that our interactions with one another become so surface level,
Yeah.
and we're really missing not so much people but depth with people.
And I think it's a real factor of the pandemic when it forced
Mhm.
everyone into seclusion. There was folks that are naturally, extroverted and connectors and really thrive on the human connection. We found ways to do that. We formed our bubbles. We found
Mhm.
other ways to connect physically and digitally, and we kept that going. But for so many folks that were kind
Mhm.
of on the cusp of being social recluse or this was quote unquote great in a bad way for them where it was an
Mhm.
enabler where they didn't have to go anywhere, they didn't have to interact with anybody. And I also saw some really interesting stats too, and I'll have to dig them up on men specifically, lack of friends and fostering those friendships and fostering those connections, which has really led to an epidemic of really terrible men's mental health issues, and it, in my opinion,
Absolutely.
all stems from the
Mhm.
pandemic. How so
Right.
how could we move into 2025? How can we look out for our friends? How can we pull people up and out and really be a good professional and personal friend?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard because you have to want to be intentional, right? And so much of what we hear from like outside in the world is to keep up the rat race, and
Mm,
it's not working for pretty much anybody, and I think if we can start connecting with people in just like pausing for meaningful connections. How are you doing? How can I actually ask you a question and be curious about you? We're waiting. We want people to be curious about us, and we forget that people also want like us to be curious about them. And so just a small investment of talking to people and saying, "I didn't know that was your favorite hobby.
mm.
Tell me more about that," right?
Like, go deeper,
Um,
go a layer deeper.
right,
And it's not just
exactly.
asking you okay. I think asking you okay is
Right.
kind of it's almost a throwaway
Mhm.
question. I think you have to
It
be more
is.
specific because,
Mhm.
like, most people, honestly, they're gonna be like, "Yeah, I'm cool. I'm fine. I'm doing all right."
Mhm.
But if you actually know something about them or if you have some insight into what they might be struggling with, peel that onion back and go a layer deeper on your question. I'm gonna give an example. You know, it's been a year since you lost your brother. How are you feeling right now? How are you coping with that? Are you talking to anybody professionally? Do you have an outlet for your, you know, pent up, frustration and grieving? What?
Sure, sure. And even and that'll take you like that sort of thing will take you super deep, right? Like
Yeah.
diving
But
into
also
something
but you also
really.
have to be prepared for the other side. You have to be able
Mhm.
to receive it too, and not just be like, "All right, cool,
Right,
great, I'll talk to you in a little bit." No, you have to be ready
right, right.
to make the commitment for that time, and focus. But let's shift it a little bit more on the
Hmm.
professional side about establishing
Sure.
connections, right? I think so many
Hmm.
folks there are kinda short-term transactional minded too, and not saying that you have
Hmm.
to be best friends with every business relationship, but that little bit extra is going to help deepen a relationship, deepen a connection, and it goes back to that old adage, and people want to work with people that they like.
Right. Well, and I think, and part of my blog talks about this is that when we show up in specific places like work, I'm a mom, so like at my kids' school,
Mhm.
specific bubbles that we're connected to, right? So often the interactions in those places are really one dimensional, right? I'm here to work and you're here to work, and what we talk about is work. And what I know you as, who I see you as, is this person who comes to work here. And we forget that every single person we interact with is multidimensional. There is
Of
way
course.
more to their life than this one place where I see you
This
every
work
time.
thing.
And and we kind of flatten out these interactions that way of like, oh, you're just this person at this job, right? And so to even let ourselves remember and imagine that this is a person with an entire life, right? That I am one very small interaction happening today in this person's entire life. This person is a sibling and maybe a parent, and maybe they're an immigrant, and that's fascinating. Or, so many things that we don't have a clue, because all we do and all we take time for is that one face to face
Or we'll just focus on
space.
our own objective and mission for that interaction from a business perspective. And it's so
Right.
interesting too. I make this joke with my wife all the time. I'm a recruiter, and some days
Hmm.
I have, 6, 7 candidate calls in a day, and I say I'm going on 6 or 7 blind dates a day, and in those first couple of minutes, I'm establishing a connection with the candidate. And I
Hmm.
mean, I've been doing this a long time, so I kind of have my different techniques, and I kind of feel it out. And it's not just asking about, oh, what's the weather in Atlanta? No, like it's really, hey, how's your day going? What's going on? Like I try to break the ice with them. What are
Hmm.
some good techniques like for a business call where you're personal but not personal? What are some things that folks
Hmm.
could kind of be mindful of?
You know, One of the things that, and probably people do this anyways, but online, that really started to happen during the pandemic, that thought is like actually really smart, is just when you start a call saying, "Hey, tell me about where you're at, like physically,"
Mm,
right? Um, Give us the rundown of what's happening, because especially for all these people who work from home, right, it gives me an opportunity to say, without the pressure of I'm interrupting a meeting, to say, my kid's in the other room because they're homesick from school today,
right.
and um and so if you hear noise coming in and out, that's just
Mm.
part of it, right?
Don't
And
mind
all
my
of a
cat. It
sudden.
makes weird noises.
Right? And all of a sudden, you know more about my life than you did 5 minutes ago, right? Just with very small information of just who's in
That's
your space
that's
today, you
that's a
know?
that's a that's a good pro tip for anyone out there. What's when you think about this blog and the content of it about authentic human connections, what are you fearful of? Like, what do you fear? Like, are we really continuing down this downward spiral, or are there opportunities and you see a light at the end of the tunnel for us to be better connected humans?
I think everybody desperately wants to be connected. It's like built into our DNA that we are made to be connected to one another, right? We're built for relationship. And so this epidemic, really, that the Surgeon General is calling it, of loneliness, I mean, it's a big problem. And we see it in mental health, but also it has an impact on people's physical health, and that starts to take people away from all sorts of important things in their life. And I think, I don't think it's a dark, dismal thing, but it is something we need to pay attention to. And
Absolutely.
someone can't do that work for you.
No.
You kind of have to figure out, like, is this a place I'm in, and what are some steps I can take to re-engage with the world?
I love it. That's fantastic. But Shannon, leave us. We're not going to end on a sour note. We're going to leave with some sunshine and rainbows here. Give us some optimism heading into 2025. What are you feeling good about in the world of connecting?
I think what makes me most hopeful about connection is that everybody really does want it. Even if you're flying so fast that it seems like nobody wants to engage, people really, really do want to be connected. And um and I think that's the most hopeful piece because really it's as simple as just reaching out,
Hmm.
right? Because people want it. When people reach out to me, I'm like, oh my gosh, that was amazing. It feels good. It releases things in our brain that actually, um, you know, are good for our whole body and make us happier.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I love it. Well, we there's an important conversation, and we could talk for a long time on it. But I think it's great that you came and joined us today on the HR Morning Show. There's been a fantastic and very important chat. Where could folks find you? Where could they connect? Where could they learn more?
Yeah, you can find me at ransacksoul.com. And if you join my email list, you get updates whenever my blog comes out and
That way.
other projects that I'm working on. I also have a course, an online course called Cultivate Calm, that gives you all kinds of tools for slowing down and being more intentional in life. And I work with people one on one.
And
So
and
all
does
of
it
that is on my website.
and
Mhm.
doesn't it start with breathing? I mean, I learned I could get pretty ramped up sometime and stressed out. I think that it comes down to breathing, and it comes down to slowing down. One of the things I do, a technique, whether it be during the day or at nighttime if I'm not probably sleeping, is the 4-step box breathing, where it's
Mhm.
hold it for 4 seconds, inhale for 4 seconds, exhale. And what that's gonna do, it's gonna physically slow your heart down. It's gonna physically calm
Sure.
you
Mhm.
down. It's gonna focus. And another technique I like to use is kind of like a word association. If I find myself spiraling on a thought, I'll be like, camera, CAM here, and I'll start to kind of like
Mhm.
move my
Mhm.
mind off of that. But guys, check out our blog. Check out the link. Shannon, please come back to our show in 2025. I think it's an important conversation. We'd love to have you back on with the full panel here.
Yeah, I'd love to come back. Yeah.
Thank you, Shannon.